Hey, this is Chris Murphy coming at you again for the third Saturday in October show, the SEC Tailgating Podcast for the rest of us. I am Alabama Chris, your SEC West correspondent, and today we're continuing our look at the SEC 2021 Media Days by tackling today, Auburn, Bryan Harsin, Bo Nix, Owen Pappoe. They all were there to give us their breakdown of year one for Coach Bryan Harsin, what we should expect to look at, so let's dive right in. First of all, as I do on all my videos, I'm giving you a Coach Speak / filibuster rating for Coach Harsin. I mean, I've got to be honest today. I love Coach Harsin, by the way, just to start off with. As an Alabama fan, as a rival to the Auburn Tigers, I look at the other coach and I like to look down my nose at him. We've got the greatest of all time in Nick Saban, but I will say I am really excited about what Coach Harsin brings to the Auburn Tigers and excited to see what he and the team can put together. Having said that, this is year one. So I always do a Coach Speak or a filibuster rating, and I give him an 8. Probably the highest that I'm going to give any coach, but I think with reason is because this is the first year. You are trying to set up culture. You are trying to insert yourself into this program and show that you are the boss, you are the leader. So it doesn't surprise me at all that Coach Harsin spoke about 15 minutes of his 30 minutes that he was up in front of the crowd there in Hoover, Alabama. But because of that, you're going to get a lot of Coach Speak. But again, I think that Coach Harsin is doing this because he's trying to set a tone. And so you can hear it when it's player Owen Pappoe or Bo Nix talking about it. They have a lot of admiration, they're looking to Coach Harsin in a very good light at this stage in the game. And I'm excited for that. Again, I think that Auburn has been due to explode, and I think that somebody like Bryan Harsin can really take them to that. I know that you could probably argue one way or the other, but I am excited for the potential and excited to see what he is going to bring to the state of Alabama and specifically the Auburn Tigers. But let's go into a little bit of what he spoke about. But before that, you got to give him his uni rating, his suit game. I'm going to give him a 7. Coach is looking pretty sharp. Got that dark suit, everything. Again, I like the tying into that orange and blue kind of striped look. A little too thick for my taste. I don't know if we, as a society, are taking in those thick lines. So, just gonna say, Coach, you're getting a great rating. I think a 7 is high marks. But let's work on this. Let's work on the tie and pulling it all together as one look. Other than that, I thought his humor rating, I gave him a 3. Remember, as I've said on other videos, I'll give a coach, we're not talking about professional comedians here. We're talking about coaches. I'll give a coach a 3 just for making a joke, even if it doesn't really land. I'll give a coach a 2 if he says something that people laugh about, even if he wasn't trying to joke. So I give Coach Harsin a 3 because he said something that was relatively humorous and a bit of the audience laughed at it, but don't know that he's going to be making his professional stand-up comedy debut anytime soon. But that's all right. He's a coach. He's not supposed to be a sleuth with the words and the comedy. He's supposed to be bringing us back to square one with the Auburn Tigers, which is what he did. Also, just wanted to quickly mention, with Bo Nix, I give him a 7 on his, no, you know what? I give him an 8. I'm looking at my notes right here. I give him an 8. Sharp look, except for his hair. The hair was a little tall for me. Maybe I'm just getting old, but it kind of has some, remember Brian Bosworth, the Boz? Give me some Boz vibes. Just really tall. A lot of product in there. So I give him a 7 or an 8 for the overall look, but he could have probably hit a 9 if that hair was a little bit more tame. But, he's a quarterback. He's supposed to be a bit flashy. He's supposed to be a bit of a peacock, so I'll give him that. For Owen Pappoe, I give him a 7. He looked really cool, dark navy suit. He had some cool black highlight or, tie-ins with the bow tie and the pocket square, both like black. Wasn't there to be very flashy, just there to just show just enough style. But you know what? He's a linebacker. He's supposed to be cool, calm, and collected. Especially him being on a stage like that. He did. He looked good. Hair game was tight. Facial hair was looking good too. So that's my wrap up. So for Coach, I give him a 7. For Bo Nix, I give him an 8. And Owen Pappoe, another solid 7 in the wardrobe department. Let me say a few things about what I thought that Coach Harsin did a really good job of. If we can sum up what he said through the 30 minutes that he was standing up there in front of all of the press and the people there in the room in Hoover, Alabama, I can say essentially, summing it up, he's saying that we're building a culture. We want you to come along, because we're building that culture with an eye to this great tradition that Auburn has had over the years. And so if we could encapsulate it to one sentence, it's we're building a culture and helping to return to our grand traditions there on the plains at Auburn. So I thought that he did a very good job in everything that he said. It was kind of like, we're building this culture. Somebody that's been there for now, I think that his 14th season with Coach Saban, he's talking, it looks different. He's talking about rebuilding. He's talking about coming in and moving the chess pieces around the way that he would like it to. But for Coach Harsin, we in the SEC don't have a lot of expectations or a lot of anticipation for what we can see from him coming from Boise State, because we're the SEC. We're spoiled. We're going to be looking at all these things and going like, okay, that was successful in Boise State, his home state, where he went to school, where he coached from. He's got a lot of experience there. But this is the SEC where the big dogs come to play, where almost every person that got on that stage in Hoover said that SEC said that quote, it just means more. Almost every one of them got up there and said it. And Bo Nix, I remember saying it. I think Owen Pappoe alluded to it. But Coach Harsin, he maybe didn't say it out loud, but he was definitely saying that, like, this is where it means more. We came to the SEC, we, meaning he and his family, came to the SEC because he wanted to challenge himself to see how he stacks up against the best, because he looks at the SEC as the best. He even goes on to talk about how the best athletes in the world, when they choose to go to a school, more often than not, they're choosing the SEC, whether it's the NBA, LPGA, the NFL, Olympic athletes. They all choose to come, or so many of them choose to come to the SEC because of this tradition and the respect that we have in the SEC across the rest of the country at being excellent when it comes to athletics, and especially our student athletes. A lot of coaches got up there and talked about graduation rates and COVID rates and all this kind of stuff to try to shore up to see that, like, our student athletes are elite. And Coach Harsin, having not been here before, he's not going to be talking about a lot of that stuff like graduation rates and everything. But he did touch on the COVID thing, which I wanted to mention briefly as well. He said that approximately 60% of the athletes or the players on the team, 60%-ish, are vaccinated. But then he went on to say, for actually a few minutes, about how, we're doing all we can to educate these student athletes. We're trying to let these players know their responsibility, but ultimately it's up to them. And this is what I took away. Again, little side, looking at the coach speak. What is he meaning by what he says? And what I see there is, like, I think that Auburn, that of all the coaches that I watched that talked about the statistics of how many of their student athletes have been vaccinated for COVID-19, I believe that this 60% that Coach Harsin is talking about is the lowest that I've heard. I could be wrong there, but I'm just going off kind of memory in my head. But 60% of players being vaccinated, let's be honest, is not great when you have other programs that are in the 90 percentile or the 80 to 90 percentile of their student athletes who have been vaccinated at this point. So what he's saying is, like, we're doing all we can. As coaches, personnel, staff, we can only do so much. We can't force them to do this, so we are trying to educate them as much as possible. So I think that what he's trying to do is get ahead of the critiques and the critics that will say, why are the Auburn vaccination rates so low in comparison to other teams, especially in the SEC West? He can go like, hey, we're doing all we can. So I think that's what he was saying there. Some of the things that he was saying he was looking forward to when coming to Auburn is, one, with the fans being back in the stadium, that we're going to have a typical collegiate experience. Fall in the South at Auburn will be amazing. So the two things that he really talked about, again, going back to all this tradition that he's trying to build upon and to retain its greatness. Because it seems like that over the past couple of years, the Tigers have taken a step back because of just who else they're playing. The LSUs and the Alabamas of the world have taken a hit for the Auburn Tigers. And so he's really trying to emphasize the return to that greatness, the return to those traditions. So he talks about Tiger Walk, what the Auburn Tiger football players, they do, and the staff and the personnel, the coaches, what they do once they get off the buses and walking into Jordan-Hare Stadium. That Tiger Walk experience he's so excited about. Also, when they win, rolling Toomer's Corner, all the toilet paper down there on Toomer's Corner, he was excited about experiencing as a coach, as a part of the community that's going to be bringing that. So I thought that was really interesting. He also gave a lot of props to former coach Malzahn, who he has now replaced in two different organizations. I believe first at Arkansas State. Coach Malzahn was the coach, and then when Malzahn left there, Bryan Harsin took over, and now at the Auburn Tigers, Gus Malzahn leaves and Bryan Harsin steps in. But talking about the fact that he actually learned a lot in coming up through the coaching ranks from Coach Malzahn, and specifically that no huddle tempo offense that Auburn or Gus Malzahn was famous for bringing. So he talks a lot about that. I want to wrap up talking today about the fact that, again, being an Alabama fan, always try to be fair as much as I can on the third Saturday in October show, but I really appreciated when he started talking about the how the student athletes, how the players can do their personal best. He talks about discipline, toughness, and conviction. He talked for several minutes on the culture that he's trying to build there. Again, around the self-regulation, that discipline to be the best that you can be. I got a lot out of it just listening to it. Again, when I take off the Auburn gear that he will be wearing throughout the season and knowing that he's the head coach of them, I look at him and I think he's a stand-up guy. I think he's a sharp guy. I loved what he was talking about, even 15 minutes before he even took questions. But I loved everything that he was saying. It's like, okay, we're going to get down to business. We are creating a culture here, and we want to get down to business as soon as possible. So he talked about being excited that August 5th is coming, where they were going to have their first official team meeting, and then going into the next day practices for specifically the new people that are coming in, the freshmen and the people that have come elsewhere. And then the next day, it's all the team together. So they're looking forward to that week, which is coming up quickly. But I just thought that the discipline, toughness, and conviction that he talked about, that the student athletes need, these players, as well as the support staff, the coaches, all of the people that are going to be standing on the sidelines or back at the field house for the Auburn Tigers, they're all buying into this. And I really appreciated this. I've actually tried to look through this discipline, this toughness and conviction in my own life and see what could I do to better represent that for my own life and professionally what I do. So I appreciated what Coach Harsin said. I loved even what Bo Nix and Owen Pappoe were talking about. I'm excited for these Auburn Tigers this year. I'm not sure now, looking at it, what their ceiling is, because I know that there's a lot of great potential. But again, when you're playing in the same division, not necessarily even just the SEC with the Georgias and the Floridas, but even in your division, you're looking across the state at Alabama, and then a little further down into Louisiana at LSU, and then College Station, you've got Texas A&M that are trying to prove themselves after a few years of not quite matching expectations. This is going to be a tough road to hoe for the Auburn Tigers. I'm assuming they'll probably be kind of like they've been in recent years, sort of middle of the pack. I'm imagining they will be somewhere probably 4th, 5th in the final standings after the SEC championship, when we finally learn who will be the champion of the SEC. I think that the Tigers will fall somewhere 4th, 5th. Again, this being Coach Harsin's first year, you can't put too many expectations on a person like that, but when you're coming into the SEC, they are already there. You don't have to put them on a coach in the SEC. They are already feeling it every day. So will Bryan Harsin live up to the hype? Will Bo Nix take a step up and become the player that we all know that he can be? Will Owen Pappoe and that defense on the Auburn Tigers really dominate this year? We will see. And I'm excited because I will be following along with all of this, talking to you about it on the third Saturday in October show, your SEC tailgating podcast for the rest of us. For Bradley Minigan, our East guy, and myself, taking down the division of the West in the SEC. Can't wait to see you next time, where we'll be breaking down a bit more and the LSU Tigers. Stay tuned. See you then.